Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I missed you all. It's good to see you. There was one moment that was a very overwhelming and powerful moment when Meredith and I were in Israel, when we were at the Kotel in Jerusalem. And I've been to the Kotel many, many times in my life. And sometimes I've had friends, I've had family members who ask us to put a note in the wall or to offer a little prayer, and I've always been happy to do it. It's a little bit different when you start going through the people in your life, and now I have a few thousand people that I consider family, and all feeling all of those prayers and all of those ideas while at the Kotel is very powerful and very overwhelming. So just to let you guys know that we were thinking of you, and we missed you. And it also turns out that if you're gone for 2 weeks in 2017, you miss a lot. And while there are some things that it was easy to come back home to, there's some things that make it pretty difficult. And I think that as a rabbi, I have a responsibility to talk about some of those things. And I think that as a Jewish community, we have a responsibility to talk about some of those things. So again, I would like to encourage, like Rabbi Starr said, that if people can stick around after lunch today to talk about the decision that was made about Jerusalem this week. And also, I think it's just a good opportunity for us to talk about anything that's on our mind. So we hope that you'll stay, and hope that we can further this conversation. Throughout the Torah, there's an image that reappears and recommits itself to being a symbol of peace, a symbol of community, and a symbol of possibility. It's intentionally nondescript, a place of such simplicity that it's easy to miss. And yet there it is again and again at the center of our ancestral narrative. It becomes a central focus for the work of both Abraham and Yitzhak. It is the genesis of love, family, and the eventual blossoming of the Jewish people, for both Isaac and for Jacob. It is Miriam's gift to her people, and it is the mark of sustenance that guides the way to the promised land. We are known as the people of the book, but we could just as rightly be labeled the people of the well. And if we think about it, it seems fairly logical that the well would take such an important role in our texts. In ancient Israel, the well was the center of communal life. It was where people came to talk, to shop, to do business, to adjudicate, to meet travelers. It was the restaurant, the shopping mall, the courthouse, and the train station all rolled into one central public square where the focus was the life-giving power of water. The center of the community was quite literally what kept the community alive. But in our Parashat this week, Parashat Va-Yeishev, the well takes on a radically different quality. And rather than offering us order and sustenance, presents a clear and powerful warning. Joseph, the dreamer, whose dream interpretation has consistently irked and bothered his brothers, finally goes too far with his family by sharing dreams in which his brothers bow down before him. Incensed, they plot to kill him, dissuaded only by the plea of Reuven, who insists that they throw him into an empty well rather than murder him themselves. So just to be fair to the Hebraists and linguists in the congregation this morning, the actual word used in the story is not the official word for well, be'er, but rather a word that is often translated as pit, bor. However, the words are etymologically related, and the rabbis themselves comment that a bor, like a well, like a be'er, is often a place from which water is drawn. And after Joseph is thrown in this well, we are presented with a fascinating line. V'habor rek ein bo mayim. And the well is empty. There was no water there within. In his commentary on the Parashat, Rashi reminds us that in holding with the perfection of Torah, there can be no redundancies in the text. Therefore, for the Torah to read that the well was both empty and that there was no water in it, we must assume that something else is going on. Rashi argues that the phrase, the well was empty, means that the well was empty of anything good or positive. It was empty of life. It was empty of hope. And it was, as the next line tells us, empty of water. But he continues, since there is a doubling here, we can imply that the well was not, in fact, empty of the negative. The well was empty of goodness, but it was not empty, again according to Rashi, of snakes, of scorpions, of poison, of potential harm. And so Rashi and the Rabbi show us a different kind of well. A well so dramatically opposed to the beneficent wells we are used to seeing within our text, within our narratives. This is not a well of unity. It is one of division. It is not a well of peace. It is one of despair. While the wells of the Torah give life to the Jewish people, this well threatens Am Yisrael's continuity and its very existence. So why is this bore, why is this pit so different than the bear where Isaac met Rebekah, where Rachel and Jacob wept as they embraced and fell in love, from the fonts of Miriam or the 7 wells of Abraham? The rabbis tell us that as we read the Torah in our day, in our place, in our context, that we must turn it, for everything is in it. Why is this well different? Because sometimes we, as Jews, are different. If we are the people of the well, then we must acknowledge, we must recognize that we are a people of both kinds of wells. Within us as individuals and within us as a community is the ability to construct the well of hope, to build a source of life, community, and nourishment that places itself as the focal point of who we are and what we stand for. A well that gives rather than takes, a well that can be seen from great distances, serving as a beacon of safety and security, of hope and refuge for those who are thirsty, those who are in need, those who are lost. But we must also come to terms with the fact that sometimes the wells we dig are dry and dangerous. Wells that trap us and keep us from our journey rather than giving us the strength to move forward. Sometimes our wells are simply empty. Sometimes our wells are filled with snakes and scorpions. One of the most painful moments in the life of a Jew is when we realize that despite our chosenness, despite our deliverance from the bondage of Egypt to become a free and holy kingdom of priests, we are, at the end of the day, people. That we are capable of harm, that we are capable of violence, that we are capable of hate. That there exists within Jewish homes and institutions abuse, addiction, negligence, and neglect. But with all our numerous faults as individuals, our greater pitfall, the true source of our empty wells, is our refusal to discuss that these problems exist. This is how our wells run dry. This is how our wells become pits. When our Judaism becomes secondary and our political affiliations come first, when we denounce the current tsunami of abuse, harassment, and misconduct and abuse of power of non-Jews, but stay silent when the perpetrators are members of the tribe, when we see hatred and bigotry, racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, white supremacy, radical nationalism, and radical intolerance, but keep our heads down and our mouths shut because, at least for now, the Jews seem to be okay, the water drains and our wells turn into pits. For over a year, we have been told that we live in a world where truth is relative. There is no right or wrong. There is just interpretation and subjectivity. But the wells of our Torah, the living waters of our tradition, disagree and disagree vehemently. Zedek, Zedek tirdof, justice, justice shall you pursue, we are told in Parashat Shoftim. Today we have a responsibility to acknowledge as Jews, as a people commanded to be a light unto the nations, that there is right, that there is wrong, and that there is an obligation to build wells of mercy even when it is far easier to dig pits of silence. This Shabbat is a Shabbat of opportunity. It is a day of peace, of joy, of celebration and song, that will lead us into the lights of Hanukkah. Traditionally, Jews have celebrated this holiday as a remembrance of our continuity, an affirmation that try as the world might, we refuse to go away, refuse to become anything less than the Jews that we are taught to be, that is so central to who we are and in our identity. And so as we transition from the lights of Shabbat to the lights of Hanukkah, let's once again rejoice in our courage to be the people that we were meant to be. The people that say the word Zedek, Zedek tirdof, justice, justice shall we pursue. We are not victims. We are not scared of facing our own challenges. And we will do everything in our power to turn even the darkest of pits once again into the wells of our ancestors. This Shabbat, we continue to dig, just as they did. And this is our challenge. Where Abraham made 7, let us make 70. Where Jacob watered Rachel's flock, let us give to any and all who are thirsty and who are in need. When the world says every person for themselves, let us grab hold of one another and remember that to be Jewish is to be family. And this family is a family of wells. Shabbat Shalom.